Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming to you from Studio 84. Welcome, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
It's fantastic to be in the space. This long-awaited baby, I can't tell you how many, I don't know, the nights and days I looked forward to hearing that final message saying we are now open and ready for business. So it's really fantastic to be here.
Thank you so much for supporting us, believing in this, and for helping us come up with the idea as well, because it has to be said, it's been a while you've been asking for this kind of space somewhere to come and record, to create content, and to roll with ideas.
True. A bit selfish on my part. Always looking for a platform and a soapbox. So
no harm in that.
Why not?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you always have something of value to share. And that I know from personal experience. You're a good friend. We've worked together in the past. And so with all your years of experience, the projects you've worked on, the insight you have into humanity at large and their behaviors, and it's very interesting to see and to know that you're always up to date with the latest trends as well.
I try. I really, really try. But Rafi, for me, it's fantastic because I feel like this is a new chapter. I'm doing something I've never done before. And yeah, it's exciting to be doing something different and to be doing it for an audience which I think, quite frankly, is ignored at the moment. I was having a conversation with Emi Hashakimana. He's the sales director at Uganda Breweries. And I love Baileys. So I kept telling him, when are you going to do an event for people like me whose knees can no longer go up and down to sit on those picnic setups that you have for your events? Where do we go where we've found a space that is inclusive and covers a range of interests and ages and everything and just different perspectives in life for people who are older, and in a way that it's safe, that we can be who we are, our true selves. And I think this will be a fantastic opportunity. I'm really looking forward to the journey. And Lord help us, the two of us in one room, we need like a chaperone or a monitor or something.
Good thing is we're able to edit.
That too.
That too, exactly. There's a good old pause button there, just within reach. If anything gets out of control.
True.
But we'll try and behave for this first one. But interesting what you've said, and it's true. I mean, we're categorized right now, and I don't like using the word old, but it's true. We're considered mature, let's say, right?
Yeah, well, these days I like to think of myself as young at heart. It might be, the age might be something that's on the official national ID documents, but I'm young at heart, so the age is not something that I'm going to let hold me back or hold me down. And I think that's something that you come to appreciate as you to get older, because now you have the advantage of your lived experience, you have the advantage of a range of things that have influenced your life up until this point. And I was looking at a quote earlier today. I think it's from Warren Buffett. And he was saying that, I'll paraphrase it, but it was something to the effect that you have to put in the time, the work, and be committed to what you want to do in the world. And so he gave the analogy. He said, if you want a baby, you still have to be pregnant for 9 months. You cannot make 9 women pregnant and get the baby in like 1 month. So I thought, interesting. So it's a different way to look at what your life has been up to this point and say, okay, all of this is the 9 months equivalent. And yeah, now we have our baby, finally. And hopefully in the conversations we'll have, people will find something that is interesting, that gets them moving, that helps them to connect. And really, that's all you can ask for.
That's very interesting. And also, I firmly believe that young at heart as we are, we've lived a life, our generation has lived a life that is really a bridge between the past and the future, if you allow me this expression, because having come in at a point where we were not so digital and technological, and we are now embracing it to keep up with the times, to still be relevant, to still be able to get information, and to still be able to make a difference as well. Because as you were saying, especially for our age range, and I truly believe, yes, the mind, the heart remains young. But then again, with time, we're also faced with a few challenges. You were saying the knees, sense of balance, little aches and pains, things that grow, move, shift overnight that one never expected. You wake up in the morning, you're not the person you were the night before.
Tell me about it.
So
Or you lie down and other bits are lying down with you and you're thinking, hello, that's something new that never used to happen before.
It's so true. The simplest thing, all of a sudden you need 2 days to get over it, when you used to just need a power nap and off you'd go.
Yeah. But I think it's much as we have to make those adjustments, I think it's a small price to pay for living the lives that we have. And I like the way that you said it's a bridge. We're fortunate that we are in the generation where, if you think about music, we know the LP, the cassette player, the DVDs, the CDs, and now we are streaming music. There are not that many people who have had a chance to experience, especially in terms of technology, that evolution in their lifetime. And so I think it helps us to connect with a wider range of people, of experiences, of places, in a way. For example, our kids, I'll never forget my son, we showed I think he was probably in nursery school at the time, and we were looking at matching pictures with letters or with words. And so there was the icon of an envelope. Now, we know envelope in the physical sense, an envelope. And if you can think back to the days when we used to do aerograms and airmail. But he immediately said email. And I thought, okay, that's actually correct.
Yes,
because
for him, yes.
That's what that means. But I know that there's an evolution because we've seen the physical paper-based thing, and now we are seeing the digital version. And I think I know we're not supposed to brag, but I really want to tap our generation on the shoulder, because I think to have lived through those transitions and been able to cope with all those changes and still be able to keep doing the things we do, for me, that's fantastic. And for those of us who've lived through the political turmoil that we've lived through, I think that also, we could have all so easily been dead by now, but we were able to live through those times. And it hadn't really occurred to me that was a very unique experience, that by the time I was about 9 or 10, because we used to live below an army, I don't know what you call it, detach or something. We were at the bottom of Kololo Hill, and there used to be an army, I think they call it a detach. I don't know what the technical term is. And as the fighting got intense, by that age, I could tell you that was an RPG, that was an AK-47. Like, we could tell what firearm was being used, and it seemed normal. It wasn't until we got out of that period that it struck me that was actually not normal. Why would a child know? Yes. All the different, but it then gives you a connection when you think about all the places in the world that are going through some sort of war or strife. In that sense, you can relate because you've lived it. It isn't just something, seeing dead bodies on the street, that was something that was our reality. So sometimes I think we need like a mass counseling session or something, which we have to give kudos to Rwanda for trying to bridge the gap that was created by genocide. But I think that for some people, maybe they've never truly left that space. They're still living in that world, especially if you lost parents, because that was the norm. People would be taken, disappear. You wouldn't even have a body to bury. So there are still a lot of people who still don't know where their relatives, their family members are. They just know they disappeared during that period. But we're here. We live to tell the tale. But it was a different kind of childhood, I must say. Yeah.
I can only imagine. Indeed, I know that over the years you've told me stories and snippets of what you witnessed, what you saw, and what you've managed to metabolize in a way as well, because you're able to talk about it, with definitely retrospective serenity, but at the same time, definitely it must have had an impact. And I'm sure you know people, as you say, who still feel the reverberations. And some things never leave you, and it takes something very small to trigger, to remind you, whether it's a sound, a smell, a sight. So definitely. but
Actually, don't know
survive
how our
as well.
parents made it. I mean, we were like many kids, and we are trying to like survive. So I really give, all the props to our parents because they have lived through some things. Because they were adults, they had to make sure there was food, that you was safe, and is- doing some really, I would say, kamikaze type stuff that
Yes.
it's only now that we sit normally in conversations over Sunday lunch that my dad then he keeps like unveiling these tidbits of the things they've done, and you're like, you've never told that part of the story. It's like, yeah, now I think you're old enough,
Understand?
you can handle it, and you're thinking, oh wow, we had no idea that that's what you were going through, because he's a doctor by training. He was working at Mulago, and one of the lingering memories in my mind was he arrives home one night and he's covered in blood up to his elbows.
Wow.
So I don't know. We've never actually sat down to get the full story, so I don't know what happened, who he was treating, and working in very difficult conditions. At some point, there wasn't like running water in the hospital. I mean, I was like, how did you even manage to practice in those conditions? We think that things are tight now, but a lot of people don't know really how tight things were back then. And we were, I think, shielded to a large extent from the real horrors, or at least some of them, at the time. But yeah, now I think we can appreciate what they went through, what sacrifices they made, because we have the maturity to sort of process and understand what that was like living in that time and having responsibility for a family that you had to provide for.
Definitely. Survival on a daily basis and for the family as well. But very often we have hidden heroes in our families, don't we? Because I'm sure that between grandparents and great grandparents, some of the things they did, the courage they had, the decisions they took, the changes in life that they made. Don't know, and with the lack of all the technology and communication channels that we
Oh,
have
yeah.
today, you'd wait for that letter for months before knowing if someone had made it to the other side, if they were okay. So definitely, I think time must have had a whole other meaning and value back then.
True.
And also when it came to keeping busy,
True.
because I see
On to
kids.
some lighter stuff. I feel like we've taken a very morbid turn.
In fact, I was about to
So
say.
I know, for those of you who don't know, Rafi is big in the world of theatre. So I saw a flyer recently about some things that are going to happen at cards. So tell us what can we expect? What goodies can we
Oh,
expect?
thank you, Jackie. Indeed, theatre forever. I keep saying they're going to have to drag me off that stage. So I'm not stepping down anytime soon, making up for those lost years. But CADS, Kampala Amateur Dramatic Society, as you know, and you've been supporting us, we're a not-for-profit. We're putting on an interactive dinner theatre session with a murder mystery. So the audience are going to have to play sleuth for that night and see if they can find out who done it. It's set in a medical setup this time.
Oh.
So actually, someone did the doctor in.
It feels like you're going to be smack right in the middle of like an Agatha Christie, murder mystery kind of novel setting or something like that.
Exactly. That's what we always try and do. Make it a little different, make it a little interesting. And then it's nice to see because then people will come. They might have a team of 10 because the tables are of 10, but there could be 2 or 4 friends who've come out for that evening, meet other people, put together a team, see if you can solve the case. We have sponsors who support us and offer lovely gifts as prizes, so that's always nice. And then CADS gives back to the community. So last year, with the shows we put together, we donated to an organization based in Fort Portal called Tunda, and they're currently building a library for the community. So
Fantastic.
the children, because it's a cultural center, welcoming children of the community, helping them with school. So it's nice to know that it gives back. People will have enjoyed it, but it's actually an even longer process. I mean, we take children from the age of 10 and above. We're all volunteers helping children find their passion, develop a certain skill set, because the theatre gives you so much, whether it's public speaking, better speaking skills, confidence, stage presence, humor, tapping into all kinds of talents. We have children who come and want to do makeup. Some do costumes, some do props. In the past, we've had children who want to come and man sound and lights. So future
Fantastic.
technicians, absolutely. So there's something for everyone. And
Great.
it's lovely to see people of different ages, different backgrounds coming together to make the magic happen on stage. And then hopefully people enjoy the performance. And then we still manage to give back to the community. So it's a lot of work, but a lot of passion. And we usually manage and pull it off.
I think I was last in the theatre. I don't know if it was a Cards production for Pygmalion.
Yes.
Eliza Doolittle.
Yes.
So it was really nice to go back and reminisce because I hadn't sort of seen the video or read the book in a long while. So, but it's interesting for something that you really love. The minute people got on stage, we were singing along to the songs, we were laughing at the jokes, and it was a really nice way to spend an afternoon, I must say. And I dragged my son kicking and screaming into the theatre, but he did end up eventually enjoying the shows. So yeah, there you go. A bit of culture doesn't hurt every now and then, and I think we've lost that thing to maybe shorter, more instant gratification type work. Maybe now we've seen a shift more to comedy shows and not so much into theatre in the true sense of the word. Yeah.
Definitely. In fact, I was thinking about this earlier, when it comes to the entertainment factor for children. Because indeed, everything is a click of a button away. And things are short and fast. You like, you don't like, you swipe, you move, everything is just so fast. So it's nice to see children still coming to the theatre because your average performance is at least 2 hours, by the time you have your interval, etc. So it's nice to see that for some it's a natural appeal. For the majority of children it can get a little bit long. Of course, at the end of the year we usually have the Christmas show, the pantomime. There's singing, there's dancing, there's humour. You always have a villain, a baddie, you have the dame, comical characters. So that seems to work. But for other performances, true. It's the audience is getting smaller in a way.
True. I wonder whether there's an opportunity to revive what we saw at I can't remember the year, but where we saw a lot of theatre being applied, particularly for health and social development. There was a very famous, I think it was written as a radio drama, Rock Point 256, and it was about dealing with a range of issues, especially around sexual and reproductive health, because at that time we were really trying to get people to understand what it took to do the required behavior change to prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. And I remember we used to look, just like you look forward to a regular television soap opera, we used to look forward to that radio series because, there is, I think, who is it that say, I can't remember who who owns the expression that, radio is the theatre of the mind. And you would laugh, you would cry, you would get frustrated, but it was a very engaging script. Kudos to those script writers because they really kept us occupied for the time that it ran. And I'm wondering whether maybe we can reintroduce those aspects into theatre to get people a little bit more interested if it's around a topic of social interest, as a way of getting another generation interested in theatre in the traditional sense that we know it. I don't know whether they would relate to, say, the productions of Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet in sort of those traditional Shakespearean things, the way we were sort of inculcated into that world of theatre. Maybe if it's a modernized version, that could be something of interest.
Definitely food for thought, because it's true. What you've just said, if it's radio alone and it's voice alone, then your imagination can run with it, because then all the visuals, all the colours, all the landscapes are in your mind. If it's brought to the stage and you're guiding the performance, of course, depending on the style that, the producers, directors, and stage manager visualize it. But it's definitely when you tell even a hard story, but in a soft manner like that, before you know it, people are enjoying it, but they're still getting the message as well, and hopefully engaging with it. So very often, even simple stories of human values, human suffering, human growth, joy, resonate so much with audiences. So one could put together a series of skits, taking these famous, well-known literary characters, in stories that we knew. And doing something in small doses to start people off.
The TikTok, what is it? TikTokization.
Exactly. But then seeing if people buy in, as we say today, or if it reflects something for them, if it speaks to them. But you, of all people, know what it's like when you need to test a product on the market.
Yeah. Well, I watched, I don't know if it was on Instagram or TikTok, where they were a couple of teenagers they had decided to sort of jazz up the Bible origin story, but tell it in the way a typical teenager today would tell it. And it was quite interesting and fascinating to see the way the messaging was done, because it was a complete deviation from the traditional, way of speaking. I mean, like everything was the lingua, everything was done, the expressions and everything was done. But I thought that's interesting because that's another way to connect with another generation of people who might not have paid attention to that piece of scripture, and it's really employing what you learn in theatre. How do I make this interesting and relevant for the people who I want to bring into this world in a way that we've not seen before, and maybe Kampala is starting to embrace that world. Recently, the Special Olympics hosted a fundraiser, and it was Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, yeah.
That was interesting, and I thought, maybe we are starting to get a little bit more interest in this style of entertainment, if I can call it that.
Definitely. So I'd have two questions. So interesting that these youngsters were trying to retell the story of the Bible. And I wonder, when does the story change then? Because, of course, every generation has its twist and spin on it, doesn't it? And when do you know when the truth stops and the fantasy begins?
The embellishment.
Exactly. So, but interesting. And everyone, I suppose, has a voice or a channel or a tone. And then you respond to it as well. So nice to see that youngsters would be trying to do that, so that they can feel comfortable with it, get the message across. If people enjoy it, even better. When it comes to Phantom of the Opera, I actually went to the opening night. Great big production, lots of passion went into it. And indeed, lovely to see so many people enjoying a musical, an operatic musical at that. Because it's not just a standard musical in a way. It's a complex story. It has its origin, and it's romantic. There's a little bit of let's say violence in it. I mean, but it's an interesting piece.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit something for everyone.
For sure.
Indeed, and very, very passionate cast. You could see it putting this together, and the joy of bringing it to the stage. So yes, very, very nice to see people enjoying that.
So let me ask you, Rafi, how did you get into theatre?
Oh gosh, I started as a child, really. My mother was a ballet teacher, and so she put me on stage at a very young age. I was, possibly almost 2, maybe younger, when I started performing, and that carried through at school. I then went onto the stage at a very young age, was emceeing events, doing stand-up, can you imagine, for talent show night. And then took a break during my university years, but then I became a full-on time spectator, went to every show, so some of the greatest actors of their time on stage, different styles, German theatre, French, Italian, all sorts, during those years. And when I came back here, I started behind the scenes with CAD, slowly, makeup, costumes, choreography, script writing, production. And then one day someone pulled out of a show last minute. The director turned around and said, "You."
On stage
On
now.
stage now. And the role, I still laugh because it was a lady of leisure.
Oh.
So I ended up playing that part and haven't looked back since. I mean, it was actually Rebecca Namfuka. She's an actress, and she turned around and said, "I think Rafi could pull this off." So I thought, wow, well, she believes in me.
Who am I?
Who am I? Let me give it a try. So off we went, yes, and it's been a number of years now.
Oh, fantastic.
So I recently played the Dame at this year's Panto, and I was rather surprised when at the end of the show, and the glitter settles and the music goes down and the costumes come off and you're pulling off that wig, and one of my fellow actresses turning around and saying, well done, Raf. You know, not every woman would have accepted to go on stage looking so ugly night after night. I was like, wow, I must have looked really bad if she's saying this to me now that the show is over.
Well, it's just an act, so really.
It's just an act.
But that's actually, I think, the greatest compliment, that you were so believable in the makeup, in the acting, that people bought into the character. So I think that's, for me, that would be like the greatest compliment, really.
What I find sweet is once in a while, if I'm in a restaurant or the supermarket, a child will come up to me and say, "Were you the dame?"
Oh, so there's recognition.
There's recognition. When I was the
recall.
evil witch, children would come up to me saying, "Were you the witch?"
That's good, because that means that you nailed it, basically. That there's that lingering memory.
Except for the children, exactly. I think the parents were like, "Oh, let her be," but the children certainly, they believe in the character, and that's what it's all about, especially for the kids. We had a 2-year-old step on stage 2 pantomimes ago. I mean, it's not every child will just step on a stage with a full audience. Step onto a stage full of strangers, and the story had, sort of explained that if you did something, you'd get candy. And this little 2-year-old got on stage and said, "I've done it, where's my candy?" And I thought, wow, message has gone across,
Yeah. Pretty quickly.
pretty quickly. And here he is, risking it all for that little piece of candy. And he's so comfortable with us. So, and that's when I feel our job is done.
True. Because if that a person who is that young, because in communication you always say the test of whether you know it's working or not is that it has to be simple for a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old to know what you're talking about. So, I mean, you went even better, a 2-year-old coming up and saying, "Hey, I've done what you said, deliver the goods." So that's definitely a win.
That day it definitely was. And now that you were saying, Jackie, messages need to be understood, from the 3-year-old to an 80-year-old. And so true. And isn't that the reflection of the cycle of life in a way? But that's a whole other conversation we can have another day. What do you see happening with language in marketing these days?
Well, I see a couple of things. I think in some instances, some ads that you see have, I would say, completely lost the plot, because you watch the ad and you go like, huh? What was that supposed to tell me? I'm left not knowing what I'm supposed to think, feel, do. So what was that about? And then there are others where they probably haven't even used any words, but you got the message. So I think the thing about language is, I think Nelson Mandela and I know that it's Nelson Mandela or it's why am I forgetting her name? Something about speaking to someone in their own language so that it speaks to their heart. And I think maybe somewhere along the way, we've gotten into this cookie cutter copy and paste thing because it's expedient, it's cheap, and we've lost that richness in actually thinking about the words that you use to express a message that you want to get across in a way that it speaks to the heart of your target audience. So there are still a few people who I think are getting it right, but there are others you look and you're like, we always used to say that the test is if you block the logo and put all the ads, especially print ads, next to each other, you couldn't tell who was talking because it all looked the same. It all sounded the same. So that uniqueness to say, when I look at this copy, when I hear that script, I can tell where that message is coming from because there's a distinct style to it, and it's unmistakable. So I think we are losing a little bit of that, but there are still a few pockets of hope, I believe.
That's good to know. But I suppose the world becoming one global village also. I realize when I look at social media platforms, everybody's elevating and everybody's indulging. And I say that because it's a common phrase that ChatGPT will throw out when you ask for copy to accompany a post. So everybody's elevating, everybody's indulging, and everybody's discovering. Those are the three key words that you'll see come time and time and time again. So it shows you, leave alone that it's a bit of a copy paste, but it's obviously simple enough and you feel you've covered all your bases in putting together a message like that. But then again, I think audiences also sometimes, if you change that narrative, they'll start feeling a little bit lost because they also have gotten used
to it.
to that pre-digested copy in a way, right? That's been thought through, repackaged, repurposed for that use today.
There's I think it's probably I think it's called the Ad Professor. It's an account on Twitter, and it's this guy who sort of goes scouring through various ads across the world to come up with what he thinks are the really interesting ads of the day, of the week. I highly recommend. I know it's called, I keep forgetting that it's called X, so we are still in the Twitter mode, but
yes,
if you look for the Ad Professor on X, I think he has a really lovely collection of adverts where you can see that there's an attempt to maintain some level of distinction that makes those ads unique to those particular brands without having to resort to just copying what everybody else is doing, even if it works and is expedient. I think in the long run, the ones who stay the course and remain true to what their core essence is are the ones which will succeed with their clients, because your customers will connect to that. And I think that's, once they get used to that, then that's fine. But I understand. I mean, times are tough. If I'm going to get some generative AI tool to spew out, 30 ad pieces in a matter of minutes, and that's what saves me hiring a copywriter. It's the reality that we know that businesses are going through. But I think when we look at that AI-generated text, you still need to put some human flair to it. Maybe later versions of those tools will get better as people feed more information into those systems. But for now, I think it is better if you've created your own distinct style. Think about Nando's. Nando's has always been known for being a bit cheeky in their ads. So imagine if you woke up one day and the Nando's ad didn't have that, cheekiness to it. It would be a bit off. So it might work for some other things, but there are some brands which have created that distinct language style that we've come to expect it of them. And once customers expect it of you, then you're obliged to keep delivering more and more of it, because that's what keeps them coming back. If you attempted to go down the route of, following what everybody else is doing, might work for a bit of time, but then you've lost that edge.
And the authenticity, isn't it? Because, when you've worked on the voice and the visual of a brand and people know it and they respond to it, and again, it creates that callback to things, to the experience. If you change it, it's true. We know over the years, you've also shared studies of brands who decided to go another route, change a look. They've sometimes had to go back to their origins, to their true self, to make sure.
Look at Pepsi. I was laughing the other day and saying, boy, oh boy, we went through all that heartache and money to end right
back where we started.
But maybe it's a thing about people having this sense of nostalgia around now. So there's I see a lot of brands bringing back, old logos and old ads, even if it's for a limited period only. But it's interesting that people are saying, okay, maybe you went a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Now let's bring it back to the core principles of what was true to us. And well, let's wait and see. But I think if you truly know your customer, there's, I think, a lot of hype around authenticity. I personally think that you're better off being consistent. Like, pick a thing and then
Stick to it. And stand by it, yes.
Yeah, because what is authenticity anyway? Everybody can claim to be authentic, but we don't have a comparison to tell whether that is indeed the case or not. So we just have to believe you when you say I'm being authentic. But if you're consistent, then it's very hard to be inauthentic when you have to be consistent. I mean, the real person will come out. We have this stunning joke that says that if you're trying to date somebody with marriage in mind, I mean, the true person has to come out at some point. You can't hide for forever. Yeah. So it's the same with advertising or in anything in the comm space. The true character, the true nature eventually will come out. So you're better off maybe focusing on the consistency of the message and what you want to get across. And that becomes the basis for which people then judge your authenticity, as opposed to starting the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to build. Audiences are not always so easily fooled. You need to build trust as well over time, right? Whether it's the promise in the advert, whether it's the product on the shelf, the experience in the restaurant. They'll also be able to judge for themselves. People see and experience so much. But I like what you said when you date someone. I remember reading once saying, if you want to really test a true man's character, see how he reacts to slow internet.
Of the days when it was a dial-up modem.
And then you'll know what he's really like in a time of crisis.
Yeah, I know that one. Given what has been happening currently with I don't know what cut cable,
Yes.
We can all relate. And it's interesting because when we think about where we came from in terms of internet speed with those dial-up modems and the monochromatic screens, now if the thing doesn't happen in real time, it's like we want to murder somebody. And
It's
I'm
the
like,
end of the world as we know it.
when did we become so impatient that we can't wait for a few seconds for something to happen? Now we want everything. The minute it's not doing what it's supposed to do, and you have, I call it, if you have a Macintosh, we call it the wheel of death, where it just goes round and round, and you're thinking, oh, like, please get on with it. Then you're on the phone with your service provider giving them hell.
Exactly.
And saying, I paid for this bandwidth, where is it? It's not happening. But I think the thing about expectations that we know generally is once you have set an expectation and you consistently meet it, it raises to the next level. So it is always going higher and higher and higher. And if we think about mobile technology, and we started at edge, then 2G, then 3G, then 4G, then 5G. I think Japan is on to 6G. It's like, which G will we end up with? And it's just going to get, the expectations never remain static. The moment you get to a certain threshold, now we will expect the level where I can be running several video channels simultaneously and none of them is buffering, and that's what I'm expecting from my service provider. So it's a never-ending goal. It doesn't remain static, but yeah, it is what it is. So maybe you pick your poison and then drink and die with what you've committed.
But it's true, because we're all being promised the world at the click of a fingertip. It's going to react, it's going to inform us, it's going to entertain us, it's going to react, it's going to do everything. So true when it comes to these expectations and patience, as you said. It definitely makes a difference. I know my husband controls our daughter's gadgets, and he always says for fun, you're going to hear a wail of despair any second now, because I'm going to block their phones. And true to his word, the moment he does it, you hear sirens go off.
So true. They say the only way to get a teenager to do their household chores is to change the Wi-Fi password.
Exactly.
Then all the things you've been asking them to do will suddenly get done because you're like, yeah, you want that connectivity back?
You've got the holy grail. They need it.
Then do what you need to do. Then we shall release the password. Until then, nothing. It ain't happening.
Oh, my Jackie. So before we wind off, tell me, please, where's your favorite place to be a hangout in town these days?
I must say, I am really behind the times. I keep seeing all these new places that have popped up. I need to think. Can I be honest? I think now it's not so much chasing the new place. I think I much rather prefer to hang out at a friend's place. I mean, you've hosted us at your place and we always have the most fantastic time. I feel sorry for Boaz. I'm like, one of these days is going to be like, you know what, our house is not a place of entertainment. Get out. But I think I have more fun now with those more intimate gatherings at a friend's place than out at a restaurant. That's okay every once in a while, but the places where you can actually sit and have real conversation, and where you can control the music. You're not shouting over the music.
Yes.
And you're basically, I think it's the company. Your people you enjoy they enjoy their company. You have lots of things to talk about and catch up on, and I find that those are my favorite places to hang out at the moment. But I am not above being treated at the champagne bar at the Serena. Just putting it there.
Because you never know who's listening
Yeah.
and who likes their champagne. Absolutely. No, but it's very true. You know, the comfort of home and being with good friends and a nice meal. And very often, you know, home cooking trumps it every time. So
True.
and you know that at home we like cooking, we like baking, and we like sharing the love Italian style through food. So definitely. Oh, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely having you here at Studio 84.
It's been my absolute pleasure. And for everybody who's listening out there, I mean, if you are interested in a really great commercial space to come and record your content, don't say you don't know what's happening. Studio 84, this is the place to be.
Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. Till the next one.
See ya.